A manager crosses the line, dragging a black waitress into the bathroom. She feels trapped, terrified, and alone. But what the aggressor doesn't know is that her husband, a trained Navy SEAL, is nearby. In one heart-pounding moment, danger collides with courage, and a single decision changes the course of their lives forever. The restaurant was alive with the chaotic symphony of clinking silverware, low hums of conversation, and the occasional shout of a server trying to keep an order straight. Tasha Williams, a black waitress with years of experience, moved with practiced efficiency between tables, balancing trays with precision and flashing polite smiles that masked exhaustion. It was past 10 p.m., and most of the dinner rush had died down, leaving only a few lingering patrons and the distant echo of laughter from the bar. She wiped her forehead with the back of her arm, silently thanking herself for surviving another hectic night. Her husband, Marcus, a disciplined Navy SEAL, had promised to pick her up tonight, but the sudden change in his schedule meant she had to stay late. Tasha shrugged it off. She had worked alone plenty of times before. That was when she noticed him, the manager, Derek, lingering near the back hallway with a peculiar intensity in his gaze. He smiled at her, but it didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind of smile that unsettled people, one that felt rehearsed and predatory. Tasha forced a polite smile in return and turned back to clear a table. But a subtle tension had lodged itself in her chest, a tiny alarm that wouldn't quiet. She felt a shiver run down her spine. Something was off. "Hey Tasha, could you come with me for a moment?" Derek's voice was casual, almost too casual, but there was a weight behind it. Tasha hesitated, her heart beginning to hammer. Is this about the schedule?" she asked, keeping her tone neutral. Derek nodded. "Yes, but we'll talk in private." He gestured toward the narrow hallway leading to the staff-only area. She swallowed hard, her mind racing. Something about his tone made her instincts scream. She considered walking back toward the main dining area, but the thought of leaving him unattended felt dangerous. Against her better judgment, she followed. The hallway was dimly lit, the fluorescent bulbs flickering intermittently, casting shadows that seemed to move on their own. Tasha's heels clicked against the polished floor as she walked, each step echoing unnaturally in the narrow corridor. The laughter from the restaurant faded behind them, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the subtle shuffle of Derek's shoes. As they reached the small break room, Derek abruptly turned, closing the door with a soft but deliberate click. "Is something wrong?" Tasha asked, her voice trembling slightly. Derek's eyes were sharp, almost cold now. "Relax, Tasha, I just need a word. Just the two of us." Her instincts screamed at her to leave, but she felt trapped. The room was small, with only a table, a few chairs, and a vending machine in the corner. She pressed herself against the wall, scanning for exits, imagining the worst-case scenario. "You're scaring me," she said honestly. Derek took a step closer. "You're overreacting. I just want to talk privately about your performance." His hand brushed against her shoulder lightly, a touch that sent a jolt of panic through her body. Tasha stepped back, her voice firmer now. "I don't feel comfortable with you this close." Derek's expression shifted for a split second, the charm slipping to reveal a dangerous glint. "Come on, don't make a scene. No one's watching. No one will care," her pulse raced. This wasn't about performance anymore. She realized she had underestimated his intentions. Her eyes darted toward the door, considering escape. But the hallway beyond was just out of reach. Meanwhile, Marcus sat in his truck outside the restaurant, waiting for Tasha. His military instincts never fully rested, and he had an uneasy feeling that tonight's late shift wasn't routine. He noticed Derek moving oddly near the side exit, his posture too calculated, his gaze fixed on someone inside. The hair on Marcus's neck prickled. He hadn't trained for intuition alone, but something told him he needed to move. Inside, Tasha's fear sharpened into clarity. She took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Please, Derek, step back," she said. Instead, he stepped closer, blocking her path to the door. Panic surged and her mind raced. What would she do if he tried to touch her? How could she protect herself alone? A sudden slam of a dropped tray in the kitchen made both of them flinch. Tasha realized she needed to buy herself time. "I can't do this alone. I'll get the other staff," she said, trying to sound assertive. Derek's hand grazed her arm. "Tasha, you don't need anyone else to worry about this." Something inside her snapped. Her voice rose, demanding attention. Step away from me." At that exact moment, Marcus stormed into the hallway. His tactical training kicked in instantly. He observed silently, then acted with precision. He positioned himself between Derek and Tasha, his eyes locked on the manager. "Tasha, move behind me," he commanded, his tone firm but controlled. Derek's smirk faltered as he took in Marcus's presence. Tall, muscular, exuding a calm authority that only someone trained to dominate under pressure could convey. "You," Derek hissed, realization dawning. "You're her husband?" Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he took a single step forward, closing the distance. His gaze never wavered, and every muscle in his body signaled readiness. Tasha pressed herself against Marcus's side, trembling, relieved and overwhelmed. "Marcus," she whispered. Marcus's eyes softened just enough to reassure her. "It's okay. I've got you." Derek, caught off guard, tried to step back, but Marcus moved with the precision of a seal, cutting off any escape route. "You're done," Marcus said quietly, almost lethally calm. Derek's bravado collapsed under Marcus's gaze. Tasha realized how serious he was. Marcus wasn't bluffing. Every instinct he had, every hour of grueling SEAL training, prepared him for this exact moment. Derek stammered, attempting excuses, but Marcus's presence left no room for lies. The manager backed toward the door, now fully aware that he had underestimated both the husband and the consequences of his actions. "I warned you," Marcus said, his voice low, measured, and impossible to ignore. Tasha felt tears prick at her eyes, a mix of relief, gratitude, and lingering fear. She had never felt safer in her life, and yet the adrenaline still coursed through her veins. Security arrived moments later, called by the commotion from the restaurant floor. Derek was escorted out, muttering apologies that no one believed. Tasha sank into Marcus's arms, finally allowing herself to breathe fully. "You're safe now," Marcus whispered. "I'll always be nearby, always." Tasha nodded against his chest, her body still trembling. I didn't know what I would have done without you." Marcus kissed her forehead, his voice steady. "You'll never have to find out. Not ever." For a moment, the world felt still. The fluorescent lights above flickered, and the distant hum of the restaurant returned, but Tasha's fear had dissipated. She had been caught in a moment of danger, and yet here she was, held, protected, and loved. Later, when they left the restaurant, the city rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under streetlights. Tasha clung to Marcus's arm as they walked to the car, the adrenaline giving way to exhaustion. "You always know when something is wrong," she said softly. "Still shaken?" Marcus shrugged, a faint smile on his lips. "Instinct, experience, and maybe a little bit of luck that I was here tonight." Tasha laughed nervously, resting her head on his shoulder. "Next time, I'm bringing a friend," Marcus chuckled. "I think you won't need to." And as they drove away, leaving the restaurant in danger behind, Tasha realized one truth she would never forget. Courage wasn't just about fighting. Sometimes it was about having someone to fight for you. Marcus Williams had always trusted his instincts. Years of grueling Navy SEAL training had taught him to notice the slightest shift in a room, a subtle tension in a conversation, or a flicker of movement that didn't belong. Most nights he relied on routine, check-ins with Tasha, scanning the neighborhood as he parked nearby, ensuring she returned home safely. But tonight felt different. He had arrived early to pick her up, only to realize she was still inside, finishing the last few tables. As he sat in his black truck under a flickering streetlight, he noticed Derek lingering near the side exit, seemingly casual but exuding an energy that set every hair on Marcus's neck on edge. His gut twisted, not a feeling born of paranoia but of recognition. He had faced danger before, and his instincts screamed at him. Something was wrong. Marcus opened the door slightly, leaning out to observe. The restaurant buzzed faintly, patrons laughing, servers bustling. But Derek wasn't watching the floor or the customers. He was scanning for someone, for her. Marcus's mind raced. He considered all possible scenarios. A late-night confrontation? An argument? Derek's eyes flicked toward the hallway that led to the staff rooms. That was it. The pattern was unmistakable. Derek was heading for Tasha, and Marcus knew that despite the odds, he might not have time if he hesitated. Inside the restaurant, Tasha moved quickly but cautiously. The dim lighting of the back hallway created shadows that danced along the walls, and every step she took echoed too loudly. Derek was close, his gaze unsettling, his movements deliberate. Tasha's heart pounded. She had handled difficult customers before, even difficult managers, but tonight something primal told her she was in danger. She glanced at the door behind her, calculating. Too far, too exposed. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to keep calm. The last thing she needed was panic. Panic would give him control. At the same time, she subtly activated the small safety app on her phone, sending her location to Marcus. A tiny signal, almost invisible, but it could reach him if he was paying attention. She exhaled sharply, hoping against hope that he would notice. Marcus's phone buzzed softly in his lap. A location ping, familiar in its precision. He knew instantly Tasha was in danger. Every instinct in his body surged forward, adrenaline and training kicking in simultaneously. Without a second thought, he climbed out of the truck and moved toward the back of the restaurant. He didn't run. He didn't need to. Every step was deliberate, measured. The silent approach of someone trained to act decisively when stakes were life or death. Inside, Tasha's back pressed against the wall, her fingers brushing the doorknob, ready to escape if opportunity arose. Derek's tone was smooth but threatening. "No one will hear you back here. Just talk to me." Tasha's mind raced. She considered screaming, but the restaurant was only a few feet away. Derek could overpower her in seconds. The realization made her stomach twist. All she could do was wait, buy time, and hope Marcus arrived. Marcus moved through the service entrance silently, unseen shadows blending with the dim night. He observed Derek's movements through the small window in the back door. Derek had already cornered Tasha, speaking in low, coaxing tones. Marcus's jaw tightened. He had trained for these scenarios countless times. Ambushes, hostage situations, hostile confrontations. And now, real life mirrored every drill he had ever run. He didn't hesitate. His muscles coiled, every nerve alert, every sense heightened. The slightest shift in Derek's posture could indicate the next move. Marcus had to be precise. Too aggressive too soon, and Tasha could be hurt. Too slow, and he might miss the window to intervene. Inside, Tasha steadied her breath. She tried to focus on Derek's words, feigning calm, but every fiber of her being screamed danger. She felt trapped, physically and mentally. Her hands twitched, ready to push or strike if necessary, but she knew she was not trained for this. She was ordinary. She was vulnerable. A small click in the hallway. The telltale sound of someone stepping lightly on the polished floor. Derek froze mid-sentence. His head tilted slightly toward the sound, suspicion flashing in his eyes. Tasha's heart leapt. Was it Marcus? A second later, the door creaked as Marcus stepped into view. He didn't announce himself. He didn't shout. He simply stood there, a silhouette of calm authority. Derek turned fully, shock and disbelief crossing his face. "You," Derek said, stammering. "You're her husband?" Marcus's eyes locked on him, unwavering. "Step back." Derek's bravado faltered. He had assumed Tasha was alone, that he could manipulate the situation without consequences. But here was Marcus, a man whose entire being screamed control, precision, and deadly capability. Marcus advanced slowly, each step deliberate. His body language conveyed authority, confidence, and readiness. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Tasha felt the tension shift. The predator now faced the hunter. Relief mingled with lingering fear. Derek tried to speak, his words stumbling. I just... Marcus interrupted, calm and firm. "You made a mistake. Walk away." Tasha pressed herself against Marcus, still trembling. "Marcus, I didn't know what to do." He brushed her hair back from her face gently, a protective gesture that calmed her. "You did exactly what you needed to, and I was here." Outside, the streetlights reflected off the wet asphalt. Marcus's truck sat waiting, but he wasn't thinking about escape. He was thinking about control, containment, and the safety of the woman he loved. Every scenario he had trained for as a Navy SEAL, hostage situations, confrontations, ambushes, had prepared him for this night. The difference now was emotional stakes. This wasn't a drill. This was Tasha, his wife, his partner, his heart. Inside, Derek realized he was overmatched. He took a step back, trying to regain composure, but Marcus's presence left no room for negotiation. The faintest movement from him could trigger a defensive reaction trained over years of military discipline. Tasha watched, awestruck and terrified, as Marcus subtly adjusted his stance, body angled, ready to protect, ready to strike if needed. "You're done here," Marcus said quietly, his tone leaving no doubt. Derek's face paled. He had misjudged every detail, underestimating Tasha, underestimating Marcus, underestimating the consequences of his own actions. The minutes stretched like hours. Tasha felt her pulse slowing slightly, adrenaline still coursing through her veins. Marcus guided her to the door, checking the hallway carefully before stepping outside. The cold night air hit her face, a stark contrast to the suffocating tension inside. She exhaled deeply, relief flooding her body. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You're safe," he whispered. "I won't let anyone harm you." Tasha leaned into him, grateful and trembling. "Thank you. For noticing. For being here." Marcus kissed her temple. "You'll never be alone. Not on my watch." The threat was gone, but the experience left them both shaken. Tasha's mind replayed every moment. The fear, the near loss, and the sudden, undeniable sense of protection. Marcus's mind replayed tactical decisions, situational awareness, and training that had saved the woman he loved. And both understood a truth that only such moments reveal. Danger can strike anywhere, but courage and vigilance, coupled with love, are the most powerful shields. The restaurant felt smaller now, almost suffocating, as the tension between the three of them crystallized into something tangible. Derek's eyes darted nervously between Marcus and Tasha, realizing too late that he had underestimated the situation. Marcus didn't rush forward. He didn't need to. His presence alone created a barrier, a silent warning that the slightest misstep could be catastrophic. Tasha pressed herself against him, grateful for the protective wall he provided, her fingers clutching the hem of his jacket as if it were a lifeline. "You're not going to get away with this," Marcus said, voice low, calm, but carrying the authority of a trained SEAL who had faced life-and-death situations countless times. Derek's smirk wavered. I don't know what you mean," he said, attempting to regain his composure, but every lie trembled on his lips, obvious and weak. "I mean exactly what I said," Marcus replied, stepping slightly closer, closing the distance while still allowing Tasha space to move behind him. "Leave her alone now." Derek's bravado collapsed completely. His plan to intimidate and isolate Tasha had failed. He tried to step back toward the door, but Marcus anticipated it, subtly adjusting his stance to block any possible escape. The SEAL's posture was precise, balanced, controlled, ready to react instantly if Derek moved aggressively. Tasha's heart pounded in her chest. She had never seen Marcus like this. A controlled storm, every muscle coiled with purpose. The man who had once been her partner, her husband, was now a force she had no doubts about. "You don't know who you're messing with," Marcus continued. "Step away from her or you'll regret it." Derek opened his mouth, perhaps to argue, perhaps to threaten, but Marcus cut him off with a gesture. Calm, deliberate, and unmistakable. It was a silent command, a warning that any wrong move would be met with overwhelming force. The confrontation escalated. Derek lunged forward suddenly, perhaps in a final, reckless attempt to assert dominance. Marcus reacted instinctively. Years of training allowed him to redirect the motion, guiding Derek's arm aside while maintaining control of his own body. Tasha watched wide-eyed, as the man who had terrorized her moments ago was now under the control of her husband's precise professional movements. "Stop!" Tasha screamed, though Marcus already had the situation contained. Derek froze, realizing his failure in an instant. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't yell. He simply positioned himself between Tasha and Derek, a living shield, eyes locked on the manager with a calm intensity that left no room for doubt. "You had one chance," Marcus said, voice low and measured, "and you blew it." Derek's breathing was ragged. His smirk had vanished entirely, replaced by fear. Raw, undeniable fear. The restaurant staff began to notice. A server peeked from the kitchen doorway, noticing the tense standoff. Derek's previous confidence faltered under Marcus's unwavering control. It was clear to everyone present that Derek was no longer in command. Tasha felt a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. Relief because she was finally safe. Disbelief because of the sheer power and calm authority Marcus exhibited. She had always known he was capable, disciplined, trained, intelligent, but witnessing it firsthand in such a high-stakes scenario was overwhelming. Marcus glanced at her briefly. "Stay behind me," he whispered almost imperceptibly. Tasha obeyed immediately, trusting him without question. Derek tried to regain composure. You can't do this," he stammered. Marcus's expression hardened, but his voice remained calm. "Try me." It was a challenge, but also a warning. Derek's hands trembled. He realized that no amount of bluster could match Marcus's skill, experience, and determination. Suddenly, the restaurant's security camera feed alerted staff to the incident. The muted click of monitors and the arrival of a security guard in the hallway added pressure. Derek's last thread of confidence snapped. He took a step back, realizing he was surrounded and outmatched. Marcus's gaze followed every movement. He didn't relax. He simply remained poised, a calm storm in the middle of chaos. "It's over," he said, voice firm. "Walk away before it gets worse for you." Derek hesitated, then slowly backed toward the door, knowing he had no options left. He exited under the watchful eyes of Marcus and the arriving security guard, muttering excuses and apologies that no one took seriously. Tasha exhaled fully for the first time in what felt like hours. Relief washed over her, mingled with lingering adrenaline. She clutched Marcus's arm, tears welling in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You did nothing wrong," he replied. "I've got you, always." Even after Derek was gone, the tension lingered. Tasha's mind replayed the moments and the fear, the helplessness, the sudden undeniable relief when Marcus appeared. She had never felt more protected, more loved, more understood. Marcus looked at her with unwavering focus. "Are you okay?" She nodded, though her voice trembled. "I think so. Thanks to you." He shook his head gently. "No, thanks to you for staying calm and keeping your wits. That made all the difference." Tasha felt a swell of emotion, pride, relief, love, and gratitude all at once. This was more than a confrontation. It was a testament to their bond, to trust, to courage under pressure. The restaurant slowly returned to normal. Patrons and staff resumed their work, though whispers of what had happened circulated quietly. Marcus stayed close to Tasha as they moved toward the exit. The cool night air outside hit their faces and Tasha let herself breathe fully. "I can't believe he actually tried that," she said, her voice shaking slightly. Marcus smiled faintly. "Neither could I, but it's over now." Tasha leaned against him, feeling safe, grounded, and fiercely grateful. I never want to be in that situation again." "You won't," Marcus said softly. "I'll always be nearby, always." They walked to the car together, hands entwined. The night felt calm now, almost peaceful, but the memory of danger lingered. A reminder of how quickly life could change and how vital courage, vigilance, and love could be. As Marcus started the engine, Tasha rested her head on his shoulder, thinking about the thin line between fear and safety, between helplessness and protection. That line had been crossed tonight, but not by her. Marcus had crossed it for her, and in that moment, she understood fully what it meant to be truly protected, truly loved, and truly seen. The morning after the confrontation, the restaurant buzzed with quiet anticipation. The news of Derek's attempted harassment had already begun circulating among staff and patrons, whispered in muted tones and cautious glances. For Tasha, the lingering anxiety of the previous night had given way to a cautious relief, tempered with the reality of what had almost occurred. Marcus stood by her side as they walked into the restaurant together, a silent anchor in a sea of judgment and gossip. Staff members offered smiles, hesitant, nervous, but supportive. Many had known Derek's behavior had skirted boundaries for months, but no one had anticipated just how far it could go. Tasha held her head high, though a residual tremor ran through her hands. Marcus had been there, calm, commanding, decisive, ensuring that Derek would never have the chance to harm her. It was more than protection. It was a lesson in courage and vigilance. Derek, now under investigation, faced swift consequences. The restaurant owner, horrified at the incident, terminated him immediately, citing gross misconduct and violation of workplace safety laws. Legal action was already underway, with the local authorities filing reports and witnesses prepared to testify. Derek's attempts to deny or minimize his actions collapsed under the weight of evidence. Security footage and witness statements, not least the silent authority of Marcus's intervention, which left no doubt about what had occurred. Tasha felt a cautious sense of vindication. Justice, she realized, was not merely about punishment. It was about accountability, and tonight that balance had been restored. Later that day, Tasha and Marcus returned home. The city streets gleamed under the afternoon sun, a stark contrast to the dark night that had nearly consumed them. They moved in tandem, hand in hand, a quiet intimacy underscored by shared relief. "I can't believe it's finally over," Tasha murmured as they stepped into their apartment. Marcus kissed her forehead. "It's never just over, but it's resolved. And you're safe, and that's what matters." Tasha sank onto the couch, letting the tension drain from her body. She reflected on the events of the past 24 hours. The fear, the near tragedy, the sudden surge of safety and strength that had arrived with Marcus's presence. "You know," she said, her voice soft, "I never realized how much I depended on your instincts until tonight." Marcus smiled faintly, sitting beside her. "You didn't need to. But I did what anyone who loves you would do." Tasha's eyes glistened with tears. I feel so grateful and so shaken." "I know," Marcus said, his hand brushing against hers. "It's natural. You faced real danger and you survived it. That alone is a testament to your courage." The following week, the restaurant implemented stricter workplace protocols. Staff members received training on harassment, conflict resolution, and emergency procedures. A sense of vigilance replaced casual complacency. For Tasha, it was more than policy, it was reassurance. The environment that had once felt threatening now carried the promise of safety, an acknowledgement that no one would tolerate what had almost happened to her. Derek's fate played out publicly. News articles detailed the incident with care, emphasizing the courage of the victim and the decisive actions of her husband. Public opinion overwhelmingly sided with Tasha, painting a narrative not of shame but of resilience and bravery. The story resonated widely, a reminder that accountability could prevail, even against those who sought to exploit power and fear. At home, Tasha and Marcus allowed themselves moments of quiet reflection. They had survived an ordeal that could have torn them apart, yet it had brought them closer. Their relationship, already strong, now carried an added layer of unspoken understanding, a recognition that love and vigilance were inseparable when confronted with real danger. "I keep thinking about what could have happened," Tasha admitted one evening, sitting across from Marcus at their kitchen table. "If you hadn't been there." Marcus reached across the table, taking her hand. "Don't think like that. You can't live in what-ifs. Focus on what we did and what we accomplished. You're safe. We handled it. That's what counts." Her lips curved into a small, grateful smile. I can't stop feeling." "Lucky? You're not lucky," Marcus corrected gently. "You're prepared. You're aware. And you trusted me. That's what made all the difference." Tasha squeezed his hand, a silent acknowledgement of the bond that had been tested and fortified in the fires of crisis. The incident also sparked a wider dialogue about workplace safety. Tasha found herself speaking at local events, sharing her experience to empower others. She emphasized vigilance, trust in one's instincts, and the importance of standing up for oneself even when fear seemed overwhelming. Her message resonated. Women who had faced harassment reached out, offering stories, support, and gratitude. Tasha realized that her ordeal, while terrifying, had given her a platform to effect change, to ensure that no one else would have to endure what she had. Marcus remained her steadfast supporter. Though the spotlight shone on Tasha's courage, he understood that the partnership between them was essential. His training, his instincts, his presence, all had been necessary, but the ultimate strength had been shared. Together, they became a symbol of resilience, courage, and love. Months later, life began to settle into a new rhythm. The restaurant thrived, its staff now emboldened by Tasha's leadership and the knowledge that safety and respect were non-negotiable. Derek's name faded into the past, a cautionary tale for those who believed intimidation could succeed. Tasha and Marcus continued their routines, but the memory of that night lingered, not as trauma but as a reminder of the stakes in life and the lengths they would go to protect one another. One evening, As they sat on their apartment balcony watching the city lights flicker, Tasha leaned against Marcus, her head on his shoulder. "You know," she murmured, "it's strange how one night can change everything." Marcus wrapped his arm around her, holding her close. "It's not just the night," he said. "It's every choice we make, to trust our instincts, to protect what matters, and to act when it counts. Tonight was just the beginning." Tasha nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I understand that now. I understand. Everything." They stayed there in silence, letting the city hum around them, a quiet acknowledgement passing between them. Love, courage, and justice were intertwined, and they had faced all three together. For Tasha, the fear had faded. For Marcus, the protective vigilance remained, a constant promise. And for both, the ordeal had forged a bond that would withstand any challenge. A bond strengthened by peril, tempered by courage, and sealed with unwavering love. Weeks had passed since that harrowing night, but the memory remained vivid in Tasha Williams's mind. She walked through her apartment, her thoughts weaving between gratitude, fear, and newfound strength. The fear that had once dominated her life had not disappeared entirely, but it had transformed. It had become a tool, a reminder to trust her instincts, to act decisively, and to value the people who truly cared for her safety. Tasha glanced at the small framed photo on her shelf. Her husband, Marcus, standing tall in his Navy SEAL uniform, a protective hand resting on her shoulder. She smiled softly, thinking back to that moment in the hallway when his presence had shifted everything. In that instant, danger had been stopped, and a deep bond of trust had been cemented between them. The days that followed were not easy, but they were filled with meaning. Tasha had started attending workshops and speaking events organized by local advocacy groups. She shared her story, not for fame or attention, but to empower others. "Listen to your instincts," she would say. "Protect yourself, and never underestimate your own courage." Audiences listened, rapt and attentive. Women approached her afterward, some with tears in their eyes, some with shaking hands, each sharing experiences of their own. The story that had begun as a terrifying ordeal had now become a beacon for others, a symbol that courage, vigilance, and action could transform fear into strength. Marcus accompanied her on several events, quietly supporting her from the side. Though he rarely spoke in public, his presence was enough to reassure both Tasha and the audience. People sensed the unspoken bond between them, a partnership rooted in trust, protection, and unwavering love. At home, life began to settle into a new rhythm. Tasha's confidence grew daily, fueled by the knowledge that she had survived, had acted wisely, and had inspired others. Her work at the restaurant continued, but now it was paired with advocacy, mentorship, and outreach. Each day she felt a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her actions, and the choices she had made in fear, could now serve as lessons for others. Marcus noticed the change in her immediately. "You've grown so much," he said one evening as they prepared dinner together. The apartment smelled of roasted vegetables and fresh bread, a stark contrast to the tension-filled nights of the past. "I've always known you were strong, but now you carry your strength openly. It's inspiring." Tasha smiled, stirring the pot on the stove. "I've had a great teacher." He raised an eyebrow, feigning humility. "Was that my role?" "You were," she said, turning to him with a soft laugh. "You reminded me what protection looks like. You reminded me that courage is about more than fear. It's about action." Marcus's eyes softened. "And you reminded me why I do what I do. Not for duty alone, but for the people I love. You made me act because you needed me. That's the difference." The public recognition of Tasha's bravery continued to grow. Local news outlets interviewed her, praising her composure and intelligence. Social media buzzed with her story, the hashtag #CourageWithTasha trending in their city. People admired not just her survival, but her ability to transform fear into proactive advocacy. Tasha herself found it overwhelming at times. She was not used to attention, never sought it, yet she realized that the platform could be used for good. She began organizing self-defense classes at the restaurant after hours, teaching staff and community members how to recognize danger, assert themselves, and act decisively. Marcus, as always, was there to support her, demonstrating techniques with calm precision and patience. Together, they became a team not just in life, but in purpose, protecting, educating, and inspiring. One evening, as they walked through a park near their apartment, Tasha reflected on the journey. The streetlights glimmered off the wet paths from a recent drizzle, creating a soft, cinematic glow. Children played in the distance, parents laughed, and the city hummed quietly around them. "It feels surreal," Tasha said softly, resting her head on Marcus's shoulder. "How one night could have changed everything, and yet somehow it made us stronger." Marcus nodded. "It's remarkable what fear can teach us, and what courage can achieve. You grew because you faced it. I was there to guide, but you acted with intelligence and heart." Tasha's lips curved into a small, reflective smile. "I never want to forget that feeling. The panic, the fear, the sudden clarity when you appeared. I want to remember it so I never underestimate my instincts again." "You won't forget," Marcus said gently, "and you don't have to. Every experience is a lesson, every moment a reminder of what's truly important." They continued walking, their hands entwined, and Tasha felt a surge of gratitude. She had feared for her life, yet that fear had ultimately revealed her resilience. She had depended on Marcus, yet it had also strengthened her own sense of agency. The two were inseparable now, bound by shared experience, trust, and love tempered in the fires of crisis. Later that night, as they sat in their apartment overlooking the city lights, Tasha reflected on the broader impact of the events. "You know," she said, sipping tea, "I never imagined that what happened would lead to all of this. Helping others, teaching them, speaking out." Marcus reached for her hand. "Sometimes the hardest experiences produce the greatest change. You were brave, not just in surviving, but in taking that courage and using it to make a difference. That's rare." Tasha smiled, warmth flooding her chest. "I guess that's the point, isn't it? We survive, we act, and then we grow. Life doesn't just give second chances. Sometimes it gives opportunities to transform ourselves and others." Marcus kissed her forehead softly. "And we take them together." In the weeks that followed, Tasha's story continued to resonate. Other women came forward to share their own experiences, inspired by her courage. The restaurant staff embraced a culture of awareness, vigilance, and mutual respect. Derek's name faded into history as a cautionary tale, while Tasha and Marcus became pillars of a community, learning to value safety, trust, and decisive action. Tasha herself felt a profound change within. She was no longer the woman who had once feared walking alone through a hallway, who had felt trapped by circumstance and intimidation. She had faced danger, relied on her instincts, leaned on the man she loved, and emerged stronger. "I've learned so much about myself," she told Marcus one night, as they prepared for bed. "I thought fear would break me, but it didn't. It made me see what I'm capable of, what we're capable of together." Marcus held her close. "And you'll never forget that. It's part of who we are now, a team, a unit. Fear doesn't control us. Courage does." Tasha's eyes glistened with tears, not of sorrow, but of clarity, empowerment, and profound love. "I understand that now," she whispered. "Completely." They lay together, letting the quiet of the night envelop them. A serene ending to a story born of terror, but transformed into growth. The ordeal had tested them, shaped them, and ultimately strengthened them. A testament to human resilience, love, and the power of courage in the face of danger. The weeks that followed the incident marked a turning point in Tasha Williams' life. No longer merely a waitress who survived an ordeal, she became a symbol of courage, resilience, and empowerment within her community. Every morning as she walked to the restaurant, she carried a quiet confidence, one born not just from surviving fear, but from transforming it into purposeful action. Marcus remained her steadfast support, his presence a constant reassurance. While he had always been protective, now their partnership had evolved. Tasha's independence, combined with his vigilance, created a dynamic that was equal parts love, trust, and mutual empowerment. Together, they were unstoppable, a living example of how strength can coexist with compassion. At the restaurant, Tasha initiated a series of self-defense workshops for the staff and local community. She taught them not just physical techniques, but the psychological strategies she had learned in moments of fear, staying aware, trusting instincts, and asserting boundaries decisively. Marcus assisted in these sessions, demonstrating practical moves and sharing his SEAL training insights. The sessions quickly gained popularity. Women from all walks of life attended, inspired by Tasha's story and eager to learn how to protect themselves. Parents brought their teenage children. Employees from nearby businesses participated, and even local journalists began taking notice. The community buzzed with a sense of renewed confidence, empowered by knowledge, action, and the stories of survival. Tasha found herself thriving under this new role. She became more than just a worker. She was a mentor, a guide, and a leader. Her voice, once hesitant in the face of authority, now carried strength and authority. Every workshop, every seminar, and every interaction reinforced a truth she had learned in the hallway that fateful night. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Marcus observed her quietly at times, pride swelling in his chest. He saw the transformation. The woman who had once depended on him entirely now standing confidently, teaching others, inspiring change. And yet, her love and trust for him remained steadfast, creating a bond deeper than either had known before. One afternoon, Tasha received an unexpected call from the local community center. They wanted her to lead a citywide initiative on workplace safety and harassment awareness. She hesitated briefly, overwhelmed by the responsibility, but Marcus's calm reassurance helped her decide. "You're ready for this," he said. "Not just ready, needed." Tasha smiled softly, appreciating his faith in her. "We'll do it together," she replied, knowing that his support had been integral to her growth. The initiative was a resounding success. Tasha spoke to packed halls, sharing her experience candidly and emphasizing practical strategies for safety, vigilance, and self-empowerment. Marcus stood quietly beside her in each session, never taking the spotlight but offering silent strength and assurance. The crowd could feel it, a protective presence that underscored her message of courage and preparedness. Feedback poured in. Many attendees shared personal stories of harassment or fear, expressing gratitude for Tasha's guidance. Others noted the positive impact of Marcus's presence, demonstrating how partnership, trust, and preparedness could empower not just an individual, but an entire community. Amid the growing recognition, Tasha and Marcus carved out moments for themselves, reinforcing their personal bond. They went on walks through the city parks, cooked meals together, and revisited the apartment balcony where they had once reflected on the events of that night. "I never imagined this," Tasha said one evening, gazing at the city lights. "That fear could lead to all this. Growth, empowerment, connection." Marcus wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "It's not fear that created this. It was you, your courage, your decision to act, to turn a terrifying moment into an opportunity for change." Tasha leaned against him, warmth flooding her heart. "I couldn't have done it without you being there, though. You were my anchor. And you were my inspiration," Marcus replied softly. "Seeing your strength, seeing you transform fear into action, it's something I'll never forget." The months continued, each day reinforcing their bond and the values they had learned. Tasha grew more confident, assertive, and courageous. Marcus remained her protector, but also her partner in every sense, trusting her instincts, respecting her independence, and celebrating her achievements. Their relationship flourished in ways neither had anticipated. The ordeal had been harrowing, but it had also revealed the depth of their love, the strength of their trust, and the power of unity. Together, they became not only a couple strengthened by adversity, but also a beacon for others seeking guidance, courage, and hope. One evening, Tasha was invited to speak at a national women's empowerment conference. She prepared carefully, reflecting on the journey from fear to resilience. Marcus accompanied her, standing in the wings as she addressed the audience, his presence silent but reassuring. Tasha spoke with passion, clarity, and conviction. "Fear is a teacher," she said. "It shows us where our boundaries lie, where our instincts must be trusted, and how courage can transform not just our lives, but the lives of those around us. We must act, we must protect ourselves, and we must empower others. Strength is not found in isolation. It is forged in connection, trust, and the willingness to stand together." The audience erupted in applause. Many approached her afterward, seeking advice, sharing stories, and expressing gratitude. Tasha realized in that moment that her journey, though terrifying, had created a ripple effect. One act of courage, one decision to trust, one partnership forged in love had now reached hundreds, maybe thousands of people. At home that night, Tasha and Marcus sat quietly together, reflecting on the day's events. The city hummed outside, lights flickering in the distance. Tasha rested her head on Marcus's shoulder, feeling the depth of their shared experience. "Do you ever think about that night?" she asked softly, her voice tinged with nostalgia and reflection. "Every day," Marcus admitted. "It was a turning point, not just for what happened, but for what we became. Together, stronger, aware, and ready." Tasha smiled, squeezing his hand. "It changed everything, and yet, it also made me realize how much we can accomplish, how much good we can create from even the darkest moments." Marcus nodded, pressing a gentle kiss to her temple. "Exactly. Fear doesn't define us. Courage does, and love. Love makes it possible." Their lives continued with renewed purpose. Tasha's advocacy grew, her workshops flourished, and their partnership deepened in trust, understanding, and respect. The ordeal that had once threatened to destroy a sense of safety had ultimately created a life of empowerment, purpose, and love. As they looked out over the city from their balcony that night, Tasha realized the profound truth that had guided them through every moment of fear and challenge. Life would test them. Danger would arise and fear would come knocking. But courage, partnership, and unwavering love would always provide a path forward. Tasha turned to Marcus, eyes shining with conviction and gratitude. "We've come so far, and I know, no matter what comes next, we'll face it together." Marcus smiled, holding her close. "Always. Together." And in that moment, the city lights flickering below became a testament, not to fear, but to growth, empowerment, and the enduring strength of love forged in the crucible of adversity.